Hey there, if you live in or near St. Louis, Missouri, Marty DeRosa and I are bringing unprofessional wrestling to the Duck Room at Blueberry Hill. It's a comedy show where we watch bad wrestling and have the times of our life. ColtCabana.com is where you can find the information for that. You're going to love it, but for now, enjoy the show.
This is The Art of Wrestling with professional wrestler Colt Cabana.
How you guys doing? Come on in, sit down, relax. You're about to listen to The Art of Wrestling, professional wrestling podcast. It's a life podcast. It's a personal journal. It's an entryway into the minds, the souls, the hearts, and the lives of the people involved in the world of professional wrestling. I am your host. My name is Colt Cabana. I'm a traveler. I'm a house guest sitter, and that guest is Japanese. I'm Colt. Most importantly, though, I am a professional wrestler, and I'm sitting here live in my studio apartment in Chicago, Illinois. Before we go any further, this is a fan-supported and listener-supported podcast supported by people just like you. We give it to you free of charge every single Thursday. ColtCabana.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts from. A couple great ways that you can support, rate, review, and subscribe on iTunes. Tell a friend. Social media is a great way. The best way that you can support ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com, t-shirts, buttons, pictures, posters, DVDs, digital downloads, The Wrestling Road Diaries, 1, 2, and 3. Get them in a combo pack. I'm still shipping all this week and next week. Get a free holiday card with any order, even if it's a couple buttons. Still some autographed copies of that Wrestling Road Diaries 3 available. It's also available on digital, and the bonus discs are available on digital for 1 and 2. Go check it out, ColtMerch.com, DigitalColt.com. Bull James, a.k.a. or FKA, Bull Dempsey is on the show this week. I don't know if I was saving this spot for somebody else. You know, CJ Parker, who was in NXT, who was the hippie guy, if you guys remember. Seems like that was ages ago, doesn't it? But it really wasn't. Now he's in New Japan as Juice Robinson. I was around when he was like just starting his first couple matches, trained by Truth Martini in Detroit, and started wrestling all around the Midwest. A lot of stuff in Dreamwave, which is now turned into AAW, by the way, for those of you fans who know of the LaSalle area wrestling community. And I remember talking to Juice after he got let go, after he asked for his let-goingness. He did ask for it because he wanted to explore the world. He'd been there a long time. And I remember it was like an experiment. It was something interesting. I wanted him on the show because I wanted to talk about, or maybe I wanted him on the show like 6 months after the process because I wanted to see if those guys were quote-unquote stars. You know, those guys, it's a thing that had never happened. The wrestling landscape and televised wrestling and with the network has kind of totally changed, and no one knew if those guys could leave the NXT area or NXT quote-unquote territory and how they would be perceived back in our world, back on the independent wrestling scene. So I was kind of intrigued to have Juice on, and it hasn't happened because he's been basically living in Japan full-time, and I have invited him to be on, and he'll be on eventually, hopefully. And I'm not saying that Bull was second fiddle, but he's almost the second guy that this has happened to, a guy who had his star shined on NXT, you know, was highly profiled on their TV show, and now is no longer highly profiled on their TV show or their digital streaming show, or whatever you might call it, and now he's back on the scene. So it's interesting to see, how it is, how it works, how they're getting by, how it's happening. And Bull James is on the show this week, and we talk about that. Of course, we talk about it all. The usual Colt Cabana, art of wrestling style conversation, if you will. And it was a fun talk. It was an easy talk. Went by very easy. I think you'll enjoy it. He's got a good heart, Bull. It's funny because, we'll talk about it in here, but, I knew him years ago, and I would never look at him and be like, intimidating dude. And now, I've been in a couple locker rooms with him lately, and he's a big boy. And he walks by me, and I say, fuck, man, that's a pro wrestler. He looks the part. He definitely looks the part, and he's doing the job. I'm doing the job, too. Well, I'm doing that. I'm also doing a lot of jobs. That's per usual, though. But I'm wrestling, running around the towns, running around the territories. Had a call back for an audition for one of those Chicago shows. We'll see if that comes through. I highly doubt it. But I was in Wisconsin. I was at West Allis, Wisconsin for Brew City Wrestling. Went so well, I got invited back for their anniversary show in January. And I wrestled in a building that basically, I almost grew up in the wrestling world. The same and this is one of those things where it's happening where I don't know to be like, fuck, what am I doing? Same fucking building, or like, fuck, this is cool. A lot of swearing in there. Sorry about that. But this is the Knights of Columbus in West Allis, Wisconsin. I literally had a tryout match for Mid-American Wrestling in January of 2000. The announcer calls me Scott Colton Cabana with a question mark at the end of my name. So Trent, if you think you invented that, you are incorrect. Although I wanted to be Colt Cabana at the time. Against CM Punk. And I remember we wrestled there. Punk got a job with Mid-American Wrestling, and I did not. But then maybe a year later, after wrestling for a long time for Ian Rotten, IW Mid-South, Ian Rotten took a liking to me. He convinced Carmine Desperto to use me on the regular. And a year later, I came back and I wrestled so many times in that Knights of Columbus. So many memories. 15, 16 years later, here I am. Same building, same beer, same bartender, same people, same fucking fans. Not as many, but same fans. Back in the day, I mean, they would just pack that place out, and they had it right. But come here, drink beer, get loaded, have fun on a Friday or Saturday night. I think that's one of the keys to the success now. Don't try to be so super cool. Just supply a sweet night of fun for people who aren't like 5-year-olds. I mean, you can do that one too, but that's a whole different game plan. Next day, I wrestled at WrestleMerica, not in Atlanta, Georgia. I'd say an hour outside of Atlanta, Georgia. The company is owned by a wrestler who's wrestling in WWE. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it, so I won't. But this was one of the most fun shows I've been in a while, and sums up everything I love about independent wrestling. So bad. Like, I thought about blogging with it. I thought about like filming my entrance to it, the guy that picked me up, the people I met, the fans that I met. I thought about it all, and I didn't. And that's when I'm like, I need a camera crew with me to just take it all in, to just soak the whole experience in. An hour outside of Atlanta, Georgia, WrestleMerica. So much fun. I hope to be back. I hope to do all those shows. Every type of independent wrestling show there is, I want to be on. And I'm going to do it next week, and I'll tell you more about my adventures. But we got a chit-chat to get to. First, we'll do Song of the Week. And the Song of the Week is brought to you by Jason Bourne, the movie. I told you I watched it a couple weeks ago. I told you I fell in love with the Bourne series and franchise. And so this is easy, and I'm proud to tell you about this movie because I back it up. I believe in it. It's now available on 4K, Ultra HD, and Blu-ray combo pack. Matt Damon returns in his iconic role, and you get to hear Jason Bourne and DTS X technology for the most immersive, lifelike audio experience available at home. It's been 10 years since Jason Bourne walked away from the agency that trained him to become a deadly weapon. When former CIA operative Nikki Parsons hacks into the agency database to uncover evidence about its illegal black ops program, she discovers new information about Jason Bourne's recruitment that alters his understanding of the past. Join Matt Damon in the next chapter in Universal Pictures' Bourne franchise, which finds the CIA's lethal former operative drawn out of the shadows. Get Jason Bourne with DTS X sound at Amazon today. I tell you to use my Amazon link, but I don't have one. It's rated PG-13 and may be inappropriate for children under 13. But if you're over 13, you're going to love it, and you should pick it up at a store near you or online. And the song this week is actually Bull's theme song. It was written and performed by Vinny Paz of Jedi Mind Tricks and Army of the Pharaohs. Give him a follow at Vinny_Paz on Twitter or check out his site, jmthiphop.com. Enjoy it. We'll be back with Bull James. So I had you say what you had for lunch, and you said nothing.
Nothing.
And then you said it's show day and you get nervous.
Yes, I do sometimes. It's been like a thing since I started that I just...
Since you started wrestling?
Yeah, I can eat breakfast, and then once like 2 o'clock hits, nothing.
Is that bad for me? Because there's some times where I'm just like eating, and you just go out there on the biggest stomach.
I'm not a dietitian, but I played one on TV a couple times.
Did you?
When I was bullfit.
Was that supposed to be a dietitian?
I guess.
I don't know how much I really watched.
It's supposed to be like Playboy Buddy Rose. The blowaway diet.
But you were bull fit, but you were... I guess I didn't watch enough to really know what happened.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome. I supported you. I knew you were doing something with fitness.
A lot of jumping jacks.
Yeah. Whose idea was that?
It was Triple H's.
Trips?
Yeah.
Based on what?
I think Kevin Steen was coming in, and a lot of people have always pegged us as like very similar, even though like we're really not. And we would talk and laugh about that sometimes because there was like times when he was coming in and people would kind of try to use it as well, he's coming in to take your spot. And I'm like, okay.
That's a big thing in developmental too. It's such a and this will be more conversational, but like right, it's just such like a closed quarter where, is that the right word? Where like all of a sudden that starts bouncing off. Like people starting
it becomes like a thing. Like once one person says it, and then all of a sudden it becomes like wildfire, I guess.
Yeah,
but it was a mixture though, because it was like between that and then they were really getting behind Corbin and getting ready to push him, and I think groom him to go up, which he eventually did. So I think to have like 3 badass killers on a show was kind of a little overkill, you know?
Right.
But I think that I had done enough to kind of solidify a spot, that I knew what I was doing and was reliable, had enough feathers in my cap to where instead of, hey, go find something, they were like, hey, let's try this out and see how it goes.
And he was like, I wonder what he was.
I would have loved to have been just to hear like,
right? That's what I want in this world.
because like he came up with like the Bullfit slogan, like the T-shirt was like his idea with like "Fit Happens" on the back and like this play on words.
You think Fit Finley was upset?
I don't think so. I always got along with Fit. I hope he's not upset.
He was very protective of, that's my name.
I hope not.
No? Okay. But, I'd like to kind of like, I don't know, hit that point of close quarters of developmental wrestling. Or maybe there's nothing to hit on.
Well, no, I think like
it's very summer campy, right?
Yeah, and there's times, it's not all the time a constant thing, but I feel like it's always trying to play the whole, you know, hey, go up there and challenge those guys and make them work harder, and it's not like,
fuck.
No.
Yeah.
Like, I remember there was one time, there was a coach who wanted me to hit people harder. And like to the point that like rocked me, and I was like, "Ow!" And I'm like, "I wouldn't hit Randy like that." They were like, "Yeah, well, me and Randy don't get along." I'm like, "I wonder why." Like, ow!
Yeah, it's such a weird he said, she said, what do I do? I guess I'd ask, like, because I have things that, like, well, I don't know. Like, look, so you've been out of there for how long now?
Let's see, February I was released, and then March I started back, so about probably 9 months.
9 months.
Yeah.
Is there, I don't want to say regrets, but, like, I mean, I have tons of things of, like, oh, I would have done that differently. I would have done this differently. Just looking back on it in hindsight, is there different stuff that...
Maybe politically, but like that's not who I am. Like I'm not like Well, so you got to play the game first of all.
You see, I'm the same way. As I wasn't a political player, and looking back, I said I'm glad. You know, this is how it turned out. I got released, but like I'm glad I didn't do it. And there's always been 2 guys, and I don't say them on the air, but I'll tell you afterwards that 2 guys that I watched really, really kiss ass. And one went on to become a champion. The other one just got fired. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, you know, they did the same thing. One, they both have to live with themselves how they do it.
Totally.
And one gets to be a millionaire, and one did the thing,
and now has to meet everybody that they burned on the way up, or they just disappeared.
A person in normal life,
right? And
still is like, oh, I was shitty, or that who isn't. Who
I've been a real asshole.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a. Yeah, I mean. I don't know. I'm speaking for you. I'm saying I don't know if you would regret that, but like that was something that you saw.
No, because I kind of had the same thing going in, where I was like, I'm not gonna change who I am. Like I'm gonna wake up, work my ass off every day, and look myself in the mirror every night before I go to bed. Like I'm gonna be able to do that.
And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah,
that was a motto that I had.
Yeah,
also.
and I think you have to, because I don't know, because it's funny you said like something you did, but for me it's like, you know, everybody always has like the Northeast things, you know, or growing up in New York, or like there's like this toughness and this manhood thing and this integrity of you're a man of your word and you stick to your word, and I was always kind of drilled in my head like that old school mentality of being a man, what being a man is supposed to be.
Wrestling or life?
Just in life.
Okay.
You know, but
where does that come from?
Just it was never really said, but like the guys that I grew up around, and my dad and the way he handled himself, like I always just kind of like saw how he would handle situations, and it was just like this tough guy. Just
where are you from?
Brooklyn.
Just in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Hipster Brooklyn?
It is now. I grew up in Greenpoint, which is like hipster haven. Now it's like their like spot, but like early '90s when I was growing up, it was a crack epidemic. It was not the greatest thing. I had to move out of the neighborhood because like I almost took a bullet. I got shot at, just like crossfire.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, so what happened?
I remember being in the park, like on my rollerblades. It was like, it was great visual. And it was like
I was a rollerblader too. I wouldn't admit it on a podcast,
dude.
But
Mighty Ducks, come on, come on. D2 the Mighty Ducks when they're all Yeah,
it was. I have great rollerblade memories too. Like we used to play roller hockey in the park. It was so fun.
I was terrible, but I had those damn things.
That was pretty good, actually.
But no, like. And I just remember this guy riding in on his bike, and it's like New York, middle of the summer. It's sticky and hot and gross. And this dude was like,
how old?
Oh man, probably 5, 6, 7-ish, like around that. I don't know the exact.
You were rollerblading at 5?
No, this was probably 7.
Okay.
But it was like, I'm just thinking like early 90s, like early mid 90s.
Okay.
And this dude had like head to toe black sweatshirt, black sweatpants, and like hood up, sunglasses, like on his bike. And it just, even as a kid, I'm like, that's something wrong with that. Like, it's really hot out. And he rode by on his bike, and I remember staring him in the eye the whole time just because I was so like, what is going on here? And then by the time I turned my head, I just remember hearing like firecrackers. But I was standing up, I was on the rollerblades, and there were my brother and his friends were all, my 2 brothers and their friends were all there. And I remember they ducked behind the bench, but I was just like in shock, and I'm standing there looking at this dude, and finally somebody grabbed me and pulled me down. But if they didn't, who knows?
Did you like, God, I'm trying to see how I should put this. Like, when did you fathom that? Like, oh, like, did you think that was a thing that was in your city at that time? Like, people shooting people?
I don't know if I did. Maybe not. Like, I knew it was a thing, obviously, because you
like
watch
from the movies, right?
Yeah, you watch movies,
yeah.
and you see people. People shoot each other. It's a thing.
That was not in my neighborhood.
Yeah, and it just like it happened, and that was the thing too. Was my neighborhood was a really good neighborhood to live in. And it was really close knit and tight. Everybody knew everybody. You could be a kid playing in the street, and somebody was always keeping an eye on you. Like, no, you weren't getting kidnapped out of that neighborhood. It wasn't going to happen. And
he sounded so New York when he said that.
But it's true. And then, like, just for that to happen was just such like, whoa, something's changing here.
Yeah. And what did your parents do?
We stuck around for a little bit, but then eventually,
what did they do for a living?
My dad worked for the MTA.
You seemed hesitant from telling me.
He worked for the MTA.
Is there something you don't want to tell me?
Yeah, my dad worked for the MTA.
I don't know what the MTA is.
The trains.
Okay.
He's an engineer.
All right.
Leave it at that.
Okay.
And my mom is actually the district leader which is like a political position.
Oh, yeah?
In Brooklyn, yeah.
Okay. What are you getting at with this MTA stuff?
No, that's just...
Why are you winking at me?
I'm not winking.
Why
are you lying? There's no video of this. I can't do that. Stop it.
All right. So a hardworking dude?
Yeah, for sure.
And there's brothers and sisters?
Yeah, well, from his previous marriage. So technically my half-siblings, but we were always really close. So
okay. How many were in the house?
At the time, just me.
Okay.
Because he was with my mom, who is his second wife. And... so it was just the 3 of us, and my 2 brothers and my sister are all older, and they were all like having their families and everything. So.
Gotcha. And then you moved out of Greenpoint?
Yeah.
To where?
To Monroe, New York for high school.
I don't know. Is that?
It's like an hour 20 north.
Well, what's the difference between Greenpoint and Monroe?
It's like the country.
Yeah?
Yeah. That's why I don't have that hard New York accent anymore, and I had it as a kid because when I first moved up there, I got made fun of a lot and got in a lot of fights over it. So I just learned to drop it and just kind of fit in a little bit. So
okay.
It comes and goes though. Every now and again.
Where did wrestling come in?
I think I was always into it when I was younger. I would watch it, but it was never like this die-hard thing. Like I watched it, and I thought it was cool. But then when I moved upstate, and like I said, I was getting into fights because of the way I talked, and just kids are terrible human beings sometimes. And
I love you just go like, and then Tom Brady did an inspirational speech at my high school.
No, I wish. But no, I just I had wrestling as an escape.
Yeah.
I wasn't really getting into sports just yet. I was starting to think about it, but I just wrestling became everything and my escape. And that was I just would go home and I had VHS tapes and all the stuff I hunted down.
Yeah, but where does it start though? There's got to be that one point, right?
Yeah, I guess because my grandfather had me watch it with him before he died, and then when he died, that was the one thing that we had.
There's nothing better than old people watching wrestling,
right?
It's really
with young kids, their grandchildren, watch this guy's gonna beat him up.
Yeah, and they believe it.
Yeah, they love it.
And there's something about that that generational gap of old, and I never get tired of hearing my I think the first one not the first one but I remember Beth Phoenix was on this podcast and she's just and my Polish grandma and she didn't speak any English and she was always just fucking Polish hammer, whatever that fucker's name is, Pulaski, Ivan Pulaski, Jesus
Pulaski.
Christ,
Clown,
I don't know. Yes, right. Oh, you're friends with. Wait, what? Is that
Pulaski? Anthony Pulaski. Clown?
Is that Roadkill?
Yeah.
Oh, he was Pulaski.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
You guys were a team, weren't you?
Yeah, well, we pitched that thing, but I didn't think you knew about that. But then, no, his name was his name Pulaski?
Yeah, for a little bit.
Yeah,
he was wearing the trunks and the
God,
brown
it's so
boots,
weird that I forget his name was fucking. That's how long ago it was, and he's only known as Roadkill to me.
Yeah,
he should. Why was he not? He should have been Frank Roadkill. If that was
George Roadkill.
Yeah. Was there anybody else in your school that liked wrestling?
Yeah, there was guys. There was, a bunch. And those were like the guys that I bonded to, and they were, on the wrestling team. I'm like, oh, there's a team for this. I can learn how to do this.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't put it together. Like I had no interest in wrestling.
Well,
but loved professional.
No. I thought the amateur wrestling was like, oh, there's a ring, and I'm going to go and show up and wrestle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't know. Like New York City public schools, there's no wrestling team. And then I show up, and they're like, all right, start running. I'm like, running? Yeah. I don't want to beat people up. What is this?
Were you a big kid?
Yeah, just like chubby. Like I didn't really hit my growth spurt till really late.
Right.
But and I was also like the way the school systems were in the city. I started a year earlier than I should have, so I graduated high school at 17. So like I was a year behind like development of like body and
that's the worst.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah. I was always you want to be the old kid, right?
Well, I think
in
so.
school.
Yeah,
because you get your license first.
Yeah.
You're bigger than everyone.
Yeah, you can get probably passed for a 21-year-old more often than not. Like if you're having parties, right? Like steal your brother's ID and get beer or whatever. But I thought like I was showing up to be a pro wrestler, and that was not the case.
Yeah,
and I'm all of a sudden doing sprints, and I'm like, this is terrible. Why am I doing this?
Did you wrestle like all
that throughout like high school and stuff? Yeah, played football. Yeah, but that was the thing. Like being behind, I think. As far as like my growth spurt and everything like that and my strength, now I look at it and I'm like, I should have been like an offensive lineman or something.
What were you?
I was an offensive lineman, but I was smaller than everybody.
You shouldn't have. Did you say you shouldn't have?
No, I think like now looking back, like I should have like tried to make the NFL or something.
Give it a go.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
But like then, like I was nowhere near like any college person, like recruiter scout would walk by and probably go, Jesus, this kid's small.
Right. Well, sometimes I think I should go back now and
try
to high school and be a defensive end.
Now Bundy.
I'd be good now. Yeah. Where there's always those things of like those like the 31-year-old Dominican kid who's playing like in high school. There's a couple of great. Man, people
Little League World Series.
Yeah, the Little League World Series, and there was one who like a basketball player, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I dream about that sometimes. I guess not anymore. I think I'm too old to have that dream, but I think in my mid-20s I did now. How old are you now?
28.
Fuck it. Yeah. Look at you. You're a baby.
Just a baby.
Okay. So upstate New York, who did you train with wrestling-wise?
I went to Gino Caruso's wrestling school in New Jersey. Yeah.
He's infamous, man.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I get you. I mean, this is no place to talk crap about him, but he's been around forever.
Forever. Yeah.
And he does. So people that don't know, God, he's one of these guys who will book like 300 shows a year, right?
Oh yeah. That was the best. That was why first his school was open 4 days a week, which was either 1 or 2 days more than all the other schools I looked at. Mm-hmm. So that was like a big thing.
Did you like? I'm thinking like, remember when Bam Bam Bigelow picked a manager? Maybe you don't remember that, but like he's like, okay. Did you like have like a bunch of schools that you lined up?
Yeah, I was looking at like Monster Factory because but I knew it was going to be tough to drive all the way down there because like South Jersey.
So tell me about the idea of picking out a school, because I literally there was like one school, Danny and Ace, and luckily it was amazing.
Yeah.
That they were 20 minutes from my house. They were in the city, very reputable, and like I just went there. In high school, I went to see Windy City Wrestling, and my dad got in a fight with the owner. And then in college, I went to see those guys, and like they looked the part, and I was just like, "Yep, I'll sign up."
Yeah.
So you didn't have that experience.
Yes,
you
had
the lottery.
Well, yeah, but no, because I was thinking about it. So I'm like, I can go to the Monster Factory, Bam Bam Bigelow trained there, or this guy, and they held like all these names, and then Johnny Rods obviously had all the ECW guys that came out of there, and I'm kind of looking at it, and I said, well, this place is open 4 days a week. So I'm just going to go down there. I can get more, and I saw Guido's name was on there, Nunzio. So I said, well, he's been somewhere. He's done something. Okay, cool. And, I learned the basics really well there. And I'll always.
So, tell me so you showed up.
Well, so I was working at IBM, just like this really like low level, like high school job, right?
Okay, so you were in high school.
Yeah. I was 17.
Working.
Yeah. And one of the guys in the loading dock was training to be a wrestler and was having his first match. So, of course, the posters were everywhere. And it was at one of the local high schools. So I went, I'll go. So I bought a ticket. Me and my friend went. And then I picked up a brochure for the school, and I said, holy crap, I'm going to do this.
Tell me who was on that show. Anyone I know?
Man. Greg Valentine was on it.
Okay.
Yeah. And
was it a Gino show?
Oh, it was.
Okay, yeah.
And I want to say Beefcake. Was the other, or Tito Santana.
You don't remember any of the indie guys?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Guys that would like help me out along the way. Kodiak Bear.
That were on there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kodiak Bear was a big one. He gave me my first pair of boots.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you look like a Kodiak Bear. How come you didn't take Kodiak Bear the name?
I should have, right? Damn it.
Well, there's time. Okay, so a bunch of indie guys. That was Gino's shows, right?
Yeah.
So
he had his crew of guys.
And that was the era. Well, maybe not, because you started in mid-2000s.
Yeah.
Right.
2005.
2005? Yeah, because I feel like 99... Well, I feel 97 to like 2002 was the era of just like get those like... Well, I guess maybe 2002, but it's like Tony Atlas, Snuka, they're the headliners, and then everybody else. I was promoting my movie, and I did just a bunch of like interviews, and people were talking about one of the hot things that other podcasts want to talk about was like the change in independent wrestling, and like it came up a lot. Like I would just start thinking back to like this is how wrestling used to be.
One name, and then like just a bunch of local guys,
and then you name off the names. It was Beefcake, or Beefcake, Snuka, just like
Tito,
Bundy,
Honky,
right?
Bundy.
They fucking mopped up. They capitalized on it.
They still are. Like, Tito's still booked like every weekend,
of course,
I think, and he's like a teacher. It's awesome.
And Demolition Axe, too, I feel. So, okay.
Jim Powers?
Yeah. Oh, I just watched a interview clip of him.
I still have all like my 8x10s and stuff like that when I was like a little fan going and like getting autographs at conventions.
Nice.
Yeah. I found a whole folder the other day.
Yeah? Who is like the randomest?
Probably Jim Powers.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why that came to mind. So I was like, Jim Powers was there.
Okay, so you liked it and you're like, I want to sign up.
Yeah, totally. And, Gino taught me a lot of the basics, but a lot of that stuff that I really picked up early on that helped me was Kodiak Bear, Judas Young, and Danny Inferno.
Hey,
like guys that really
I know Judas and Danny. I don't know Kodiak Bear.
He had just like, he was not wrestling as much when I broke in, but he was still like coming around and helping out just randomly.
Had he been in a long time?
Yeah.
Is he one of these guys that was like I always love like a 1992 indie worker.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I was hanging out with Norman Smiley, and he showed me a video of like him in some weird like South American country. And he's like, "Oh, this guy's from New York," and it was Kodiak Bear. And I was like, "Get out of here! Like, how did this happen?" Like, and all these like.
And how did they get the footage of that?
Norman had just his video camera with him, was like taping stuff. You know?
I regret not taping a lot of stuff.
Yeah, he got me really big into taking pictures. I was never a big picture guy, but then he was like showing me all these pictures he had, and he said, "You're just think about it. You're never going to get the same group of people in a room together at the same time.
Yeah.
So you might as well have." I was like, "I'm taking pictures from now on."
Yeah, Hawkins was like that too, wasn't he? He started. I remember this was just a couple of years ago. He just got in this mood. Of
I think it's probably Norman because we've both spent time around him, and he was I'm sure you had too, right? Yeah, and he's the best.
He's the best.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's Gino's shows. Are you doing all those shows?
Yeah. Once I got rocking and rolling, like he just put me on everything that he had, and I had progressed so much more than a lot of the guys that were at the school who had been there for 3 or 4 years. That like I was the one now wrestling Snuka and Tito and
I was going to ask, did you wrestle
I got
guys?
plenty. Yeah, so many.
Give me some stories of like weird things that have happened.
So I just remember Snuka like chain smoking the whole day.
Okay.
And like you'd be in a school, like a high school. Like, you can't do that.
In the school?
Yeah, and he would just sit in his corner with his Marlboro Reds and just puff away and like, you can't do this, but it's Jimmy Snuka, like who's going to stop you, right? And it got to the point where I knew Snuka's match by the back of my hand, and it was like this 3-minute match that like I knew he would, because I did it every time with him.
I wrestled Jerry Lawler, and I went to Jake Manning, and I was like, I'm kind of worried, and he goes, "Oh, here's the match."
And like I don't know why I did this, because my big thing when I was signing up for school was to read all the wrestling autobiographies that coming out because they were just getting hot. And it was always like keep your mouth shut, shake everybody's hand, don't. If the veteran says something in the ring, you do it, blah, blah, blah. It was all like the same rules pretty much. Like, okay, I'm just going to follow this. But like the Snuka match took its toll on me. So I was like, I'm going to like throw a wrench in the plans here. So like, he was doing something and I shot him off and told him to reverse me and give me the big double chop. Brother.
Yeah.
And he did it, and there was like 500 people at this show, and they went nuts for it. Yeah. And I was like so proud of myself that like I made that call, and like this.
Did he ever say, "Hey, that was a good call"?
Well, when I was reversing him, he went, "What the fuck, bro?" And I went, "Uh-oh." And then we got to the back, and I'm like, "Oh man, he's gonna kill me." And he went, "From now on, kid, you call it." And I went, "Whoa!" And I was like 19,
I like the idea of just like. in his head, he's like, this kid is a genius. 'Cause I did the double chop.
And they
went crazy. Fuck, I don't know anything. This guy.
But I think he realized, like, now, like, I knew his match, and he trusted me to kind of, like, throw a wrench in here and there if it needed to. And, like, I don't know, but it was just cool for me as a 19-year-old. Like, Jimmy Snuka just told me I could call his match for him.
And were you doing the Gino shows up until you got signed?
No. We had a little bit of a falling out.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Over what?
I decided to run my own show.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a topic. I don't know. I guess when I was young, like there was times of like, oh, I could run a show and make this money. I don't know. But I would never do it, I don't think.
So I did it, and of course it was the same indie show. It was, the legend on top. And
Who's your legend?
it was Brutus Beefcake, and Nunzio had just gotten released, so I snatched him up too for it. And
Okay.
then the rest was just, all the guys that helped me out as like a thank you. And it was just,
And why'd you make this decision?
I was sick of a lot of the guys that were doing indies for so long and still getting the same like $20 handshake. Hey, the house is light. Sorry. And like, no, there's not. There's 1,000 people out there. There's 500 people. The house is not light. Like, stop, And I said, you know what? Like, the boys just need to look out for each other, and I'm going to make this decision because I'm this 20-year-old full of piss and vinegar, and that's what I'm going to do. And I did it, and then that first show had like 650 people.
Get out of here.
It was nuts. It was awesome.
How did you promote? Where did you promote? Your high school?
In Brooklyn. No, I found a church in Brooklyn, and the priest there had, baptized me and given me communion and everything. So my parents were close with them. I was close with them.
I don't know. I'm a Jewish.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry. But no, like he got me in the building. We did a fundraiser, and I got like the old school tricolor carnival posters.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah, and I hunted down the printing place, and I got them, and I just went nuts. Like every day, just went and put them up until I just got tired of doing it.
Is that how you thought you? Is that how you did tickets?
Yeah.
You think tickets went because of those posters?
It was the only promotional stuff I did, really. Like I called like the Daily News and like tried to get in there, and they had like one little blurb about it.
Yeah.
But,
Internet?
Yeah, like I sent out a press release, but I was like so against. I saw all these indie companies were starting to
Just
try to
doing
use
the internet.
yeah, and they weren't drawing anything from it. So
Right.
I was like, okay, so I just need to go like, back to basics and
Which is weird now because now finally
yeah,
it's kind of like, yeah, this is where you should promote the internet.
because now everybody's on it.
I think with Facebook ads, like I think that's such an important thing. And if you're an indie promoter out there, I think Facebook ads are kind of the way to
they're
go.
They're cheap and they always I always see them. They always pop up. Like,
Well,
on Facebook
cheap
and stuff,
or not cheap. You can spend.
you can spend whatever you want.
Yeah, you have the. If you want to put $500,
Yeah, you can do
everybody in the world will see your ad. I think. I don't know.
Now like video on demand and all that stuff, and the iPay-per-views are so big, and there's
I think iPay-per-view. I don't know if those are going away. Those were a real buzzer a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And you think they're still rocking? Maybe
well,
this
people
flow
are still
sport
doing
thing.
them, but now the flow sport thing. But I think it was just like there wasn't even that when I was doing this.
Of course.
like that it wasn't even a thought yet. So
Right.
It was still like, no, you go and promote the town.
So did you make a shitload of money?
I did okay, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. But then I had no desire to do it again. Like it was just a pain in the ass.
Right.
But then, like a year or two later, a high school came to me in that same area of Brooklyn and wanted to do one. So I sat down with them, and somebody called the high school when they caught wind of it,
Okay.
and got it canceled.
I love the idea that you're this businessman now.
Yeah.
Just a
Oh, yeah.
21-year-old fuck.
Yeah.
This is how it works, brother.
And this is what I'm doing now.
I'm gonna need this for this.
Yep.
Like, you're calling the
That's it.
shots.
Yeah, but no, like somebody called the building and got it canceled, and then
That's that Northeast politics,
Oh, yeah.
right? That
Oh, yeah.
And you
Rampant.
fuckers are the worst.
well, you fuckers, I didn't
dude,
do anything.
You, New York.
Don't generalize. Not
I
me.
am
It's not me.
generalized. I'm just saying this area.
Oh, yeah.
like that. What was it? The DOI.
Dude, oh, God. Yeah.
The idea of those, not those people. And I'm sorry if you're the one who runs DOI, but it's just like there's such fighting. I guess there is everywhere, but
it's bad.
I've been a lot of places, and it's notoriously pretty bad in this
Yeah.
tri-state
Yeah,
area.
New York, New Jersey, and then like Boston had its clicks, and Florida I always heard was really bad. But yeah, up here is like brutal sometimes.
And yeah, but there's also that mentality of like they can't wait to call to snitch on somebody.
they love it. Yeah.
And I feel that's a New York
It's terrible.
head space, if anything.
Yeah.
I just made up a word.
Well,
it sounded right.
But you know what though? The thing is, I kind of knew obviously who made the call, and they also had a show coming up in Brooklyn.
There you go.
And I had also done.
See, I was right when I said you guys.
Well, I had been doing said person's ring for about 2.5 years at that point, or longer. So I knew that ring truck like the back of my hand, and realized that all the truck was too small for the ring, and all the boards stuck out of the back. So the door closed on top of the boards, and then it was just bungee cords to hold it down. I said, "Oh, I can get in there." So I snuck into the truck one night before that person's Brooklyn show, and I took their ring post and I hid it behind the building because you can't put up a ring without a post.
Right. One post.
Yeah. And then I put the bungees back where they belonged, and the ring went to the show with 3 posts.
Oh, God.
And I guess eventually they hunted down the missing post, and the show started at like midnight.
Ay.
So
there's a story of a show in
which I think we're cool now.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's funny.
Okay.
Because I figured there's no coming back from this.
Showing your hands with that one.
That's all right.
There's a story in England.
Statute of limitations
of showing your hands too. You're showing your hand. I think that's the term of it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, showing your
card
hands.
thing.
Yeah. I got 2 of them.
Jazz hands.
There was a story in England of a guy who. There was a super show and somebody fucked somebody over, and it was just a matter of like somebody had paid the guy like, I'll give you this much if you just you don't go. And then there was just like this kind of not super show but like a big promoted show. It just didn't have a ring.
Yeah.
And then it turned into Kaiju Big Battle or Ken the Box. You ever seen Ken the Box?
No.
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 Oh, there's a famous clip in Japan of this guy Ken the Box, and he's wrestling just in a high school gym, just on mats.
Oh,
Japan, man. Japan's weird as shit.
Yeah, I need to watch this.
Yeah, and it's pretty famous. It's like from the mid '90s.
That's awesome.
Ken the Box.
That's
the
awesome.
best. You'd get that reference if you knew it.
Sorry.
It's okay. Taz.
Yeah.
Did you hook up with him before? You were in his super camp, is that right?
Yeah, he was doing his finishing school.
Right.
And
Which is such a good idea. This is me, like business. This is business Colt,
right?
Because, and you've probably talked to him more about it in general, but the same way that, like, probably it is good to run a promotion. Like, I never want to do it. In the same way to run a finishing school sounds amazing, because you don't have to worry with like teaching guys how to bump and shit.
Right.
But the reality of like just there's just only like everyone should go to it, but there's only just X amount of people who kind of would, I feel.
Yeah, and the selection process, like you had to get like accepted to go. Like you had to send in a match and a promo, and I think towards the end a few guys slipped through the cracks, and I think that was what kind of just he got fed up with it, and it was just enough. But I kind of see where he's at too, because he was commentating for TNA at the time. Mm-hmm. So it was to have that on your plate when you come home.
He put a lot of money into that.
He put so much work into it, dude. It was, it was awesome. It was probably the best investment wrestling wise I've ever made.
For you,
yeah,
not for him.
I don't think he ever lost money on it.
Oh, okay.
I think,
what happened to all that equipment? I remember like seeing the videos. It was like all painted orange.
Yeah,
and it looked nice.
Yeah. No, but he put a lot into it, and because that's just the kind of guy he is. He'll put everything he's got into whatever.
So that gets announced, and you're like, "What? You're just a dude wrestling?"
Yeah, I had been around Matt Bourne a little bit, because Tommy Fierro, who ran ISPW back in the day, had brought ISPW back and was running like pretty legit shows and with a lot of good talent on it. And Matt had moved back to the area, and we wrestled on one of the shows, and he took me under his wing and was really helping me out a lot.
You liked him a lot.
Yeah, he was awesome.
He was kind of a psycho, right?
Oh yeah, he was not a maniac. No pun actually intended. Yeah.
In what way? Just was he one of these? I feel he was. I didn't know him that well, but I a couple times. But I feel he's one of these guys that the business just kind of ate up a little bit, right?
Yeah, and at the same time, he also.
And for those of you who don't know, Matt Bourne was Doink,
Big Josh,
Big Josh. Yeah.
And he was in the first WrestleMania against Steamboat.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't know if it ate him up or he just loved it so much he couldn't get out, because he grew up it. He was in locker rooms when he was 7 or 8 years old, because his dad was like the star of the Portland territory. That's Tony Bourne. Yeah.
Okay.
And he would tell me about car rides like his dad and Moondog Maine and Pat Patterson going to like San Francisco to wrestle, and driving back up to Portland, and when he was a little older, spending summers in Hawaii because his dad was working down there, and he just always grew up in locker rooms. So I think it was just so in his blood that to the point when he was old enough to do it, he didn't want to, and then somehow slipped back into wanting to do it, or just tried it.
What were some of his quirks that would make me say the guy was kind of a maniac?
I think he just wouldn't open up to people. He was very just sit back and watch. and just kind of peruse what was going on, and then make a decision of whether or not he wanted to give you advice or wanted to help you. He just kind of would just sit back and watch a lot.
Were you around for that Hacksaw Jim Duggan thing?
I wasn't there.
That was a weird thing,
Yeah,
right?
it was very weird. Very strange.
There was like they got in a weird shoot fight, and like Jim Duggan's like the nicest guy too. And then but like
they had some weird heat from like Mid-South. And
right.
I was like, I don't want to get involved. This is like so old, and you guys are still pissed at each other. Like, I don't even want to know what happened.
And that's the idea of like when I say like sucked into wrestling.
Yeah.
Right? It's just like 30 years ago and a thing that like no one cares, but they're still
holding it against
you still
each
think
other.
about it.
Yeah, but he helped me so much and taught me a lot. You know, it was just one of those guys and just such a random person in wrestling that just all of a sudden appear in your life and, hey, I want to help you. Why? Like, you know, like that wrestler, like, why would he
Definitely
want?
something, for sure.
But he just saw something, and, you know, it was just one of those things where he always seemed to have, like, this gift of sight. Like, it kind of like how Dusty had, too. Like, those old-timers had that thing where they saw something that nobody else saw, but they knew that if they brought it out of you, they could make you. And, like, I just feel like...
I wouldn't know that about Dusty. For me. Oh,
damn it.
No. So he was one of the first guys.
Yeah, and he had really, like, went out of his way. But even before that, though, like, the Northeast was just always filled with guys who... They kind of demanded respect, and if you gave it to them, you could get a lot out of them. And, like, Danny Doring, who's one of my closest friends, he was one of those guys who early on was just something about me. He was I like this kid. He just gets. I don't know if it was just staying quiet and being respectful or what it was, but you know, Crowbar, who I wrestled tonight, and
I was watching him wrestle. Man, he's. I've asked him to do the show, and like he wants to do it.
Yeah.
He's just so. You don't think about it, but he's so good. Like he is good. Like I was watching him, I was like, "Fuck, this guy knows what he's doing." And like maybe not like because he's a little older, but like he just. His placement in the ring. He's a pro. The guy's a real fucking pro.
Totally.
Yeah,
and just such a nice guy, and one of the few that really has their shit together outside of wrestling.
Right,
you know?
Of course.
But for me, knowing him from such a young age, like that kind of helped me with kind of thinking about future wise. Like, you know, I got to be smart about money and save, and you know, try to buy a house eventually. And
just the idea that he went.
That he didn't need it anymore, you know,
right?
Because there was all these old timers and they were still doing it.
The Matt Bournes of the world,
yeah, you know, because he wrestled for so long, he couldn't get a real job. Anymore. Like he would do some construction on the side here and there, but like you know, as far as like a set living, like none of those guys really knew that, you know. And here's Crowbar, who's got his own physical therapy practice now, and like all this stuff, and just wrestling's just fun for him again. It's not a job anymore.
Doesn't that scare you though? That like once you do that. And this is more questions for him, I guess, but it's like, you know, just talking between us, it's like once you do that, once you get that, like once you go real deep, like I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get this degree.
Yeah.
You're like basically saying like, well, I guess
I'm done with wrestling.
Wrestling's never going to be a full-time gig.
And if you're cool with that, like that's awesome. More power to you because he's cool with that. He's got his wife.
But I'm saying, what about you?
Me? Like I'm nowhere near ready.
You're not there yet, right?
I'm absolutely not. Even, you know, I've had the most random questions of, would you go to the Performance Center as a coach if they offered you a job? And I would say, honestly, I'd have to really mentally be done wrestling because there's still bucket list stuff I want to do. And
it's funny you say that because Danny Daniels, who runs AAW, was once offered a WCW reffing job when ECW went out of business, and he turned it down. He was like, "No, I want to be a wrestler." And I was like, "You're just doing the fucking indies. I go, why wouldn't you be a fucking?"
You're still in the business, still on the road.
Yeah,
but you know what? I've never been presented with that, so I can't really answer for that.
Well, at the time, I was like, "You're crazy,"
right?
But now. I get it.
Yeah,
I get why because he wanted to wrestle. He didn't want to fucking ref. And like like not that I'm saying you want to be, but like like you don't want to be a coach. You want to be a wrestler
for now. You know,
I'm saying right now, 28 years old. Of course.
I want to go to Japan. I got stuff I want to do. Like, there's, I'm like scratching the surface now with where I want to go.
So when Taz came, when the idea of going to Taz's finishing school, you were just a guy wandering around.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt Bourne helped you a little bit.
Yeah, the good thing was like...
But so dare I say, and don't take this the wrong way.
No.
I mean, you weren't an indie name.
No, not at all.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. And maybe I'd like to hear your take on, like, that's always fun. A guy who did the indies but wasn't really an indie name. And then when you see... Because you were, like, right in the middle of, like, as the indie world then became part of the WWE.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So... So you were this guy. You weren't really making a name for yourself. No offense to you.
No.
I don't think. Maybe you were to other.
No, I was trying to.
You were trying,
but
of course.
it wasn't working.
And so, did you say like I'm trying? So like maybe I need Taz? Is that?
Yeah, it was just one of those things of I looked at it and I said I really I got to make a go at this, and I have to be around guys that have been there now and like really step my game up. And I decided to save up and do it just because.
How'd you save up?
Just I was working, odd jobs and random, just random stuff that was random jobs that would allow me to do indies. That if they ever asked me to change my schedule to weekends, I would quit and go find another one.
Gotcha.
Yeah, basically. But I saved up and I signed up, and I was accepted into the thing, into the finishing school, and it was the best thing I ever did.
Do you think, in terms of like, is that your? I'll say this. So like my trainers. I never really had an in. I mean, they didn't know anybody. So, like, we had to kind of make our name before then we made friends. And then, like, 10 years later, they all, that's where those connections came through.
And it just finally paid off.
And right. But it was, sometimes you're like, man, if I would have went to Shawn Michaels wrestling school, or,
right.
Like, you ask yourself that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you too, you went to Gino Caruso's.
Right.
It's not like
you could have went to Johnny Rod's,
right.
Or, Monster Factory. They produced all these guys.
But do you think, like, that was, like, the first, like, start of, like, okay, everything's starting to roll now?
Yeah, because but at the same time, it was also when everything kind of started falling apart for me. Because I went and did the finishing school. He pulled me aside. We did like a one-on-one thing, and he put me over and said he wanted me to come back to all the other classes that were going to follow ours, because it was supposed to be 6 weeks. I wound up there for like a year and a half or however long it was open, and I did a Ring of Honor tryout, like their first tryout camp, and got told no, like flat out. Okay, no problem. And then Taz had got me hooked up with a TNA Dark, and I went down there. They told me no. Okay. Well, what do I do now? So now I just like started talking to him about trying to get booked as an extra. And then he asked me if I knew Bill DeMott, and I had met Bill on an indie show like post Deep South, like a really rare like convention.
Yeah, he only did a couple of those. I remember.
And I just was like, screw it. I just reached out to him one day, and I said, I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, hey, I'm looking for a job, but what would I have to do to try to get looked at? And he took my info and he sent it to the office, and then I got a call to get booked as an extra. So he helped me out a lot. And then I told Taz, and he gave me like some guidelines to follow, mind your P's and Q's and everything.
Going as an extra, the one time. Gotcha.
And I got, I had a match before SmackDown, and cut a promo, and like Regal and Scott Armstrong were there, and
you had a match in the ring with no fans.
With no fans,
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
the most nerve-wracking thing for an indie guy.
It's the worst.
Yeah,
it's just the fucking worst.
And there's like Arn sitting
watching,
there, and I'm like, oh no, I better not screw this up.
Yeah.
But everybody liked it, and then I got brought back for the following month, and Stryker was still there, and he kind of knew, because right at that point, I was working for NYWC a lot, and Mikey was a really big fan of my Whipwreck. So he was, when Stryker knew that, he was invested and helped me out. Mm-hmm. And then, Matt Bourne was really tight with Jerry Briscoe and Arn. So he was trying to call them to talk me up. And Taz, still had his connections with guys. So he was so I had like some people working some stuff out, and I was like, okay, hopefully this is now all finally going to come into place. And it did. And then that February of 2013, I had my tryout in Tampa for 3 days of absolute hell.
Oh, one of those.
Yeah.
You were one of those guys.
Yeah, it was a stacked tryout, too.
Who got signed that you were in there with?
Myself, Kalisto, Eli Drake, now with TNA.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Ty Dillinger, second time around.
So
Adam Cole was at that tryout. Mike Bennett.
No offense to you.
Sure.
You're in there. These guys are like top physical babe bodies, and you're a husky dude, right? So when you say it was like hell, is it just hell for you?
No, it was hell for everybody.
That was one I heard. That was
it's hell for everybody.
So how do you?
Maybe more so for me, but
that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you go into that being like, fuck, like?
Well, I was still working out with the same strength coach that I had at Taz's place at his finishing school, and he was this guy named Mike Mitchell, who's awesome, and he's out in California now, but he was still in New York, and he was just had me doing like sled pushes, all hours of the night, and like just it's like it doesn't matter what you look like, if you can go, you can go.
Right.
So,
and that's probably the idea is, and I'm sure they're like, as long as you don't, and I've heard that before. It's like as long as you keep on going and you don't quit.
Funny. I guess like the big thing always, Vince likes bodybuilders is always the big thing, right? And Taz had kind of smarted me up to like, no, he's like, me and Vince had talked about it a bunch of times. Like Vince also likes the guys that when you walk into a bar and you see them sitting on the other side of it, maybe you think about walking out. He's like, and you kind of have that and your intensity is there and you do all the little things right. He's like, so you're going to get a look. It's just a matter of whether or not the timing's right. And they say yes. And the timing was right. And they said yes. And I remember the first day of that, Steve Kern pulled me in a hallway and was like, every coach laughed at you because of how you look. But you kept fucking coming back, and now you got more heart than anybody in there. So fuck them. I was like,
what do you think about?
Awesome.
Yeah, but what do you think about that first thing when you're like, hey, everyone's laughing?
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Why am I here then?
Yeah, thanks for the undermined fucking compliment. Yeah.
I think maybe it was just more like licking their chops that they were going to blow me up, because it's
right. Of course, you're the one because at that time they were. It was just the babes, right?
Yeah.
Just the hunks.
It's a babe.
just the hunk dudes. And when I say babes, I mean men.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 years in developmental.
Mm-hmm.
Emotionally, were you... I mean, tell me like where your head was a lot of these times.
I think it changes so much, and you can go from this extreme, like when things are going good, they're going really good, because now talking to like Dreamer a lot about it, he's like, they'll push you and then stop the push just to see how you react to it.
Do they really? You always hear that these tests.
Yeah, I don't know. It's changed so much now. Even like I've been gone for like 8-9 months, and now like all the guys that are getting signed are like, it's been great, and I'm like, it is great, but a lot of like the mind fuckery, I guess is the term for it, like is gone. And I think I kind of caught the tail end of that.
You were in there for mindfucker. Yes, yeah. Right. Yeah, you were in there for a change of the guard, too.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, and you don't have to say anything, but I was there. I did not like my time in OVW. Mm-hmm. I liked my time in Louisville. But by the time I got to Florida, and the two people were Steve Kern and Dr. Tom Pritchard and Norman Smiley and Billy Kidman, who were all just amazing.
Yeah.
By the time I had finally gotten to a place where expressing your creativity was allowed and being who you are in the ring and not just being constantly berated like you're a piece of shit wrestler from my time in OVW, I was so like jaded at that point. It's like I really couldn't even appreciate it.
Yeah.
So like and you were there right now this time where everyone's like, I love it. I'm sure Alex Riley, who came in just during the Florida run and everyone was super nice, was like, yeah, this is great. Everyone's super nice.
Right.
But I had a time where I was like, oh, like I was just being berated for being a loser of a human being.
And, the thing is, too, there's been like Bill DeMott and myself, we've had ups and downs with our friendship, relationship, whatever, coach talent, whatever it is. I think looking back on it now, I am kind of appreciative of going through it because I know I earned everything I got. And I have no problem working my ass off. So I think, like, now that I look back on it, I'm kind of thinking, oh, maybe he didn't want people to think that, like, we were buds or that he knew me from the indies. So maybe he was harder on me in front of guys because of that. Or maybe, but maybe I'm overthinking things, too, because that's just what we do, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just, I don't know, maybe I'm still mind-fucked, but who knows?
No,
I don't know. Does it ever really leave? Who knows? It's... Because you're constantly thinking about, well, what about this situation? Were they testing me here? Were they trying to do this here? What was going on over at this point in time? Like,
and that's the start of this whole conversation that we had when I said, tell me about your regret. Like it comes out. It literally just came out. Like, you still think about it.
Sure.
And the idea is to move forward and like have this great fucking career and fucking knock it out of the park, where it's just like kind of like a... Like, well, I mean, that was part of my story. Was that time in there, and it fucked with me a little bit. But like, look, I'm a success.
Yeah,
and that's we've the people have came out a success despite whatever, or even in spite whatever.
And even with the influx of indie guys now, I was looking at the indies and going, Colt's out there killing it with his stuff, and the Bucks and Cole and all these guys are doing all these cool things, and like. I knew I was armed with a lot of the stuff from Norman and Robbie Brookside and Sarah Del Rey and just being around all these people, like and Billy Gunn. And every coach there I took something from. And I'm kind of like, well, my confidence was never higher because I can go with anybody. And I can do comedy and I can brawl and I can wrestle. And people don't even know half the stuff I can do that Norman or Robbie showed me that like.
I love all the grass is greener shit, man. Like, cause it's so crazy because everyone in the indies is like, they just want to get there.
Yeah. And I was that guy. We all were, right? Like,
well, but also, I mean, I was in developmental going like, oh, I wish I was in Ring of Honor. It sounds so cool. And you hear about like, like Seth Rollins is at PWG. Like, oh, he's like, oh man, this is so cool. It's so awesome. It's like, come on, man, you're the fucking headline of WrestleMania, man. But I get it. Like everyone has that, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know when it gets fixed.
I think it was just more of didn't want to believe the hype that like this is the be all end all. You can only make a living doing this here, which that I wanted to be a WWE guy. I think I never became like an indie name because I never did any crazy high spots to get noticed. Like I would just try to just do things the way that I was taught were the right way and the way WWE does things because they're the ones that are going to
Were you doing things the way you were doing so you could eventually get to WWE?
Yeah, that was my whole goal.
Right.
You know, and that's all I wanted to do.
And I think that's not the difference, but that's a theme that I see and maybe sets people like myself and the Bucks apart and Chris Hero is that I think all of us, and this is another thing I said I've been doing a lot of interviews, is I just never thought I'd be in the WWE. So I was just like, I'm doing what I can do so I can make a living at wrestling and be a wrestler. But I never saw, and I've had people on the podcast like a Tommaso Ciampa who's just like, they told me what I had to do to get to WWE, and I did that, and that was my plan. You know, then he got there and got fired.
Yeah.
But you were one of those guys in the path of like, this is what I'm doing so I could eventually get there.
Right.
Yeah. And now you're not there.
Yeah.
And now you've realized like, oh, here's now this whole.
But I was a Ring of Honor fan though. That's the weird thing. I liked the different styles and stuff, but I think it was just besides ECW, it was my first like exposure to that of, wow, this stuff is different and unique and cool.
Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know now it's like coming back to the Indies, and I'm kind of going, well, hey, I always liked Ring of Honor. Now I have an opportunity to work there. Or I always wanted to go to Japan because I always heard the stories about it, and I always kind of felt that even if the styles were kind of changing, they still always will like a big American to beat people up. And they also like crazy comedy stuff too, which I can do.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm over prepared now for every situation.
So we had a conversation when you left WWE, and we were talking about being on the podcast, and I said like, I don't want you to have you on this quick. I want you to kind of like, I was like, you have so many emotions right now because I knew. I don't know. Tell me like the emotions in those last 9 months.
Yeah.
As opposed to being on right now where you are at, as opposed to where you were then 2 weeks after you got it.
And I kind of got it when you said it then, but now I really get it.
Yeah.
You know, I just like,
which is fun for me because like I knew you'd really get it in 9 months, and I knew you thought you got it, but I was like, nope, he's got to wait. Yeah.
No, but because you know when you first, no matter who you are, I don't care how miserable you are when you're there. When it first happens, it's miserable because you know what do you go from this grind of every day and bumping and rolling, doing these drills from one ring to the other ring to the other ring, and then you got to go to the gym, and then you got promo class, and you're just never home, and now all you have to do is sit home, and it's like what?
And you had a set routine, and now you don't have a set routine.
And I was like, it sucked. Like the good thing was. It was also, I don't know if it was a curse though. The first time my parents came down to visit me in Florida was the night before I got released.
Jesus, were they there as you got released too?
Yeah, they were at my house. Like,
God.
They got there. We went to dinner. We went back to my place. We all went to bed. I woke up, went to work, got fired, came back, and said, "Hey, I'm going home."
Oh my. Yeah, I don't. My phone call like to my mom.
Oh, mine was in person. That's the difference now. Yeah,
mine was just like there was a little embarrassment. My mom was so sweet about it. My dad, they were obviously so supportive.
Sure.
I imagine yours were too.
Yeah,
I don't know, right? But there is a bit of like, well, listen,
now what do you
coming
do?
home, Mom. Yeah.
That was the biggest thing I think for them was, well, what do you do now? And that's been like the biggest thing. Like, well, what are you doing now? No, I'm wrestling and making a living and I'm having a blast, and I'm like with my friends, and nobody, there's none of the political backstand. Like, yeah, I'm sure it's there, but I don't care about it anymore. Like, I'm not looking out for it and looking over my shoulder. Like, I'm just having fun now.
And you really have to, when you jump back in this world, it's really about developing, like, I hate this word, but like brand, like,
Sure.
Yeah, you have to figure like I got to sell this to the world without the monster of and that's the hard thing is without the monster and the corporate of the WWE. And I don't mean the monster in terms of like grr, but I mean like it's this giant conglomerate who can help you, right? And you're just solo. It's a solo game. You're the only one supporting yourself now. And and now you're on the team.
Yeah,
you're on the team, and you've since gone. I mean, you've gone to Ireland. I've seen you flying around, right? You were just in the UK.
Yeah, I did. My first trip over there, I did Ireland, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and England. I've been talking to some promoters in Germany about going over there. I just came back from England again. Ring of Honor kicked off a little bit, doing some stuff with that now, and then it's just everything that I've dreamed of having from the business and like wanted to have and put my effort forth towards getting. It's like now it's like I got to WWE. I did very well considering the odds, even if it wasn't what I fully wanted out of it. And I feel like, I was told the door's open to go back. I feel like it is, but I don't know if I really want to right now, especially with how crowded it is.
Right.
Where do you fit in, But
you want to, I think you want, so you're 28, and when I was 28, I remember, I think I got fired at 29, and I was just like, oh no, I'm so old.
Yeah.
But like, you're not.
Right.
And it's so weird to like think, if you could think like 33 or 34, people are coming back. And especially since you've been around, so like you just have all these years to explore everything.
Yeah, and I mean, like I always look at Steve Austin. He didn't hit his prime until 37 or 38, and he'd had how many surgeries? Like Stone Cold didn't hit till he was almost he was mid 30s.
Yeah, I'd say mid 30s.
Yeah,
when he was ringmaster, maybe 33.
I think
I've looked at this because this is something I do a lot.
Yeah, because I thought when Stone Cold really hit was like mid to late 30s, and it was almost like, wow, that he's old by today's standards of when you hear like, oh, the cutoff age is 30 now,
right?
And then that quickly went away, actually,
which is nice.
Yeah,
but you know what? In 5 years, it'll be back to that. It'll be 22.
Oh, I'm sure. I feel like every day it changes.
Yeah,
and that's just kind of like. It's the good and the bad part of it. It's like, yeah, it's always changing, but maybe it's like, all right, it's changing again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but when you're in it, you're like, fuck. Because like I was a guy who was, I was around like they're 6'5", 240, and now it's fuck, you can be 5'2".
Yeah.
But
it's but when you're in it, and it's when people just don't get the bubble. I don't think they don't understand what it's like to be there. And I'll never tell somebody, I'll never say anything to dissuade them from wanting to go. But you really need to be ready to deal with it when you're there.
And I think you have to go.
Sure, you have to. But I think like to just think that once you're there, it's this easy ride.
Right.
That's like the big misconception. It's like, no, you're going to work harder now.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get harder the higher up you go.
So hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you just got to be prepared for it.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
It's this whole thing. It never ends. It never gets, unless you're me, you can cruise a little bit, but just talk to people on a thing. But no, yeah, of course, right. And I think that's how it always is that it's always like boom, and then once you get to the roster, and then you have to be a mania guy, and then you have to fucking hold your spot up, and then you have to good man. Where you at on the internet?
Twitter at Real Bull James. The same on the Instagrams, and I believe the same on the Snapchats.
Ooh,
yeah.
Showing some wiener pics?
No, just trying to get some social media love.
I couldn't
not
do
that
Snapchat.
kind of love.
I couldn't do Snapchat. Some girl was like, "You get Snapchat?" I was like, "Oh yeah," and then I got it, and she just like pictures of her smiling. I was like, "This sucks."
Well, I'm not sitting there going, "Here's my ween."
I thought I was going to see some boobs. No, I didn't.
But yeah, man, thanks for having me on, and thanks for doing this for us because it's cool.
What did you and Stone Cold talk about?
A lot of good stuff.
Did we hit the same things? I didn't listen to it.
No, we hit a lot of different stuff.
Did we talk about different
We talked
stuff?
a lot of Matt Bourne because Matt actually influenced him early on.
Oh yeah,
which was kind of a cool connection to have.
Okay.
Yeah.
I talked a little bit about Matt Bourne.
Yeah.
That intrigues me a little bit. I like weird people.
Yeah.
Especially Portland. That was such a
You know what's funny is that tape library will never be in the hands of Vince McMahon.
Go on.
Don Owen was very generous with the boys. He would really he was like notorious, one of the best payoff guys.
I always heard
right?
that, yeah.
But when it came to production, he would take the same VHS tape that he taped TV on and just tape over it the next week. So unless you were taping it off the television,
right,
and you're finding like some secondhand tape trader, it's almost impossible to find.
God, I'm sure there's people like trying to collect one show at a time.
I guarantee it. Yeah,
but they wouldn't take that. They wouldn't take the second one hand and then buy that.
Maybe.
I wonder if they take the second hand off of VHSs and buy that footage.
I'm sure people would.
I mean, WWE. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah,
I don't know the system how that works.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how good the footage is.
How good is that Buddy Rose when he turns babyface?
Yeah. Dude, they was such good stuff, and it's like if you can find it,
that's
awesome.
on YouTube. It's so good.
Yeah.
Have you watch it or no?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Mm-hmm. That's so crazy.
Yeah, there was a ton of good stuff up there, man.
Oh, man.
It's funny that they'll never have that, or at least probably never the whole thing.
You don't deserve it. All right, buddy. I appreciate you being on.
No, thanks, man.
This was a good chat. Thank you. All right, another fun episode in the books. Bill. I was going to call him Bill James. He's going to get that a lot, isn't he? I remember Bull Payne would get Bill Payne a lot. That was a thing. So get used to it, Bill Dempsey. Now people are going to start saying, guys, be cool. Bull James. Bull James is on the show, and we're looking forward to where his career goes from here. All right, before we get out of here, let's get into some plugs and
upcoming events.
All right, the best way that you can support ColtMerch.com, digitalcolt.com. That's where you can grab the Wrestling Road Diaries 3, please. Twitter and Instagram at Colt Cabana, Facebook /AOW Podcast, also /Colt Cabana. My storytelling podcast, Pro Wrestling Fringe, plus past archives of the show are ad-free, and they're on Howl.fm. Use the code COLT. Get yourself a free month. ColtWrestling@gmail.com is my very public email. Maybe a promoter won't put me on your upcoming show or convention. I got some openings in January. YouTube, I got a YouTube channel. Also, ColtCabana.com is where you can send stuff to my P.O. Box. Love getting snail mail. Captain Catfish or Fish, I don't know if I say it right, but he sent me a little goodie, and I loved every second of it. Upcoming Friday, December 16th, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, houseofhardcore.net. Saturday, December 17th, Austin, Texas, WrestleCircus.com. Thursday, December 22nd, St. Louis, Missouri, BlueberryHill.com. That's the comedy show Marty Dross and I are doing. You come to it. Come to our comedy show. It's fucking funny. Friday, December 30th, and Saturday, January 7th, Marionette Park and LaSalle, Illinois, respectively. AAWrestling.com. Friday, January 13th, West Allis, Wisconsin, BruceCityWrestling1.com. Saturday, January 14th, Atlanta, Georgia, ROHWrestling.com. Sunday, January 15th, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Facebook /First Wrestling. And Saturday, January 28th, Southgate, California, Facebook /AWS Promotions. And that Friday is a part of Rise-Wrestling.com. I'll be doing a women's wrestling seminar. If you're a lady who's been wrestling for a while, come learn some shit from me. I got something to teach, I guess. They keep on asking me to do it. All right, that is the show for this week. Big thank you to you at home for the whole year. I appreciate it so much. Thanks to Bull James. Thanks to Cable Guy Jeff Stu Stone. Thanks to Kid Russell Matt Jenkins on the music. Thanks to Dane Miller with that text. Sponsors, we got sponsors, highspots.com, a VOD service that's amazing. Subscription box, all the $5 wrestling titles, AMA knee pad, gear, mask, wrestling ring. You need a wrestling ring? They'll make one for you. OneHourTees.com. They help run ProWrestlingCrate.com. They help run ProWrestlingTees.com. And that's where you can directly support your favorite independent wrestler. TweakedAudio.com/Colt earbuds that I use. Get over 30% off and free shipping just because you listen to this show. I think, I don't know yet. You'll have to find out next week. But I think this is the last convo for the year. We'll have 2 different episodes in the following weeks. Christmas and New Year's time. Not sure what they're going to be, but I don't know. It'll come in your feed, and you'll check it out anyways. I'm sure I'll have a note for you, but it's been a fun year. I'm glad that you still listen to these parts at the very end. I'm glad that you listen to the show. I'm glad to have you as a fan and a supporter and a friend. I'll see you guys at a show. Come to a show. Shows are fun. You'll love it. All right, this has been The Art of Wrestling. For Colt Cabana, I'm Colt Cabana. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kikutaro from Tokyo, Japan. I'm just moved to United States about 5 days ago. I stay Colt Cabana's apartment couch this week.